So I am at the Heathrow Airport on my way to Ghana, but I realized that I need to upload part 2 of my conversation with Kerry before I leave England. Again, in this conversation we are talking about when racism is actually classism or unconscious bias. We are also talking about how to fix systemic racism in the UK or classism in West Africa and in the Caribbean.
And I looked at her, and when you look through someone, I said, Kerry, end this conversation. When our parents moved to England in the 1950s, they saw themselves as people who were coming to another person's country. They need to be on their best behavior. There was that mindset. And then they have their kids and they try to instill that. But guess what? As the generations go, the Black kids that were born see themselves as British first, not Black first. I have the same rights as you and you. I don't care. And then the grandparents are like, well, you can say that. They're like, why? I'm British. I can say this. I was born here.
So Kerry, these are the same people that often complain about unfairly disadvantaged, just like you said, right? But yet we have you and other people like you who come from another country, right? Because still you emigrated to the UK and you were able to accomplish so much. Is it about the attitude that you come with? Because, if you can accomplish as much as you could accomplish with, of course, there were incidents in your life of racism. Why are the British Black people struggling or complaining so much? I need to be careful. I really don't want to get into trouble, but how real is this systemic racism? Is it something that can stop you if you refuse to let it? Or is this something that we need to fight and focus on and discuss constantly and just keep it at the front of our minds all the time? How do you navigate this world with the systemic racism that does exist, as we have established? Because obviously you've been able to navigate it quite well. You've accomplished so much. What advice would you give to Black British men who feel, or even women as well, Black British people who feel disadvantaged, who feel like they are not being given the chance to become something in this country? What would you say to them?
Okay, so I've often had these conversations because I would go in and give talks to inner city schools, hospitals, etc. So I've done this and I've had these conversations. And what I would say is, these organizations where you feel as if they are targeting you unfairly, like the police or whatever, you can only change them from within.
Right.
In order for there to be change, the organizations, these institutions must be reflective of the society that they serve. And it is as simple as that. If it is that you are in a community where it's 70% Black, what you will need to have is at least some representation of these persons, because guess what? If you bring someone from Scotland to police Brixton, then they've got to understand the culture. It will take some embedding. I've not got a magic potion or a wand. All it is I've come to England and I knew I did not want to fail, so I pushed harder. When I was cold, when I was wet, I thought about, my future, what it was I wanted to achieve. Sometimes you just need to want things enough. You got our kids who we know, they'll be more comfortable because we want life to be better for them. So it kind of dulls that fighting spirit in our kids. So because they know things will be given to them. Yes, you've got persons who are disadvantaged and who, by virtue of their background or where they live or combination of all of the above, these persons will struggle unless they're really academic, they pass their exams and go to a good school. But the odds are stacked against a lot of these kids because guess what? When your family is poor, you need to find your behind up there to get a job to help support the family. So for some people, they don't have that option and they need to see people who look like them in those places of power. So some people said they needed to see me. They needed to see, and they said DCI Luther. But I'm not the say Luther because he was a little bit dodgy, but I got what they were talking about, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you I guess in the Black communities, there needs to be a lot more mentorship. And there also needs to be a lot more engagement, a lot more community engagement, because that is what works. I know it is what works because I've seen it work.
No, I totally agree with you. And when it comes to representation, I mean, these are I'm having some of these conversations in the world of literature as well. You have written a short story, which I have the privilege of publishing very soon, which I'm really, really excited about. So just tell us briefly what it is about and what inspired you to write it.
Okay, so my book is called The House in the Middle. It is telling the story from the perspective of the houses. So the houses have got a personality, and the houses have the personality of the owners. So you've got the plantocracy persons, you know, who would have come up, their families worked in the plantation and they had a certain amount of money. These are your perceived rich white people from the day. Then so let's say that's the house on the right, just for now. And then your house on the left is the one that is the young bankers. So this is the new money. Now, they don't have any kids, they're jet set, they go all around the world, they've got lavish parties, and this house is a brand new house. So the house on the right is an older house, the one on the left is new house, but it's new money. And then you've got your house in the middle. This is our focal point, really. This is the poor house that was there from inception, before the area started to change, before you had that gentrification. The house had the poor family with all the kids running around barefoot, but having a fun time. And it is the pressures that this middle house face from the other two to leave, to go away, because you're pulling down the value of the area. You know, they're looking on their noses and they're not recognizing within themselves that their own worlds are falling apart because they're so focused on the perceptions. So it is all about classism.
You know, I love this. You know, I don't know if you've noticed, but instantly when we're talking about your story, I'm smiling. I just can't help myself because it's such a good story. It's such a deep story and it's so real. I don't know, but I feel like this thing that we are talking about right now can be perceived in places like Africa, probably, or the Caribbean, more than in the West. Would you say that's the case, that, you know, classism exists more or is visible more in such places as Barbados, maybe Ghana, maybe some other places as well?
Well, you know, I'm just going to cut to the chase and say yes. I actually know persons, because I've been to Nigeria on numerous occasions. I've not been to Ghana, but I know persons who are very close to me who've been to Ghana.
Yeah, yeah.
And the stories are the same. But I'll tell you something, right? And this again is going to make sense to you. If you remember back in the old days, you know, we had the grammar schools, we had the old English system, which would have been given to these countries such as Barbados and the other English-speaking Caribbean countries. So basically, we were taught the old English Anglican religion, which a lot of our families older so still live by, where, you know, it's easier for a camel to get through the needle of a night than for a rich man to get into heaven, and they take these things quite literally. So,
like,
you know,
the money is a bad thing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, money is
it's
a
not
bad
good to
thing.
have money.
Yeah, but the irony of it is that the people who have the money, they don't seem to be too unhappy. But for some reason, they're trying to tell you, oh, you know what, man, having money is not all it's cracked up to be. You're telling this to a man who's hungry. And guess what? The man that's hungry is buying this. And they're like, yeah, I know that I will get my turn when,
But
we
I
go
feel
to
like that's
heaven.
more in the West. I feel like that's more in the West. I feel like, for instance, in Ghana, right? I'm not going to talk about another place because Ghana is what I know. The way I see it is like, I feel like the people who have money, like they just lord it over you. I've seen a situation in the market, right? I was in a car with somebody who's very much high up there and all that. And she was purchasing some things at the market, and the market woman brought those things to her. Like, they were the same age, two women, the same age, both Ghanaian women. One is sitting in the car purchasing products from the market. The other one is bringing those products on her head, in a huge bowl or whatever it was, and loading them into the car. And that woman was trying to just smile and say something, just to have an exchange, a human exchange. And the person who was sitting in the car with me didn't even look at her. Like, she didn't smile back. She didn't even look at her. It was just such a weird experience for me. And it stayed in my mind because, here is a person, right? Just like you. She may not have the money that you have, but like, that doesn't make you any better than she is. And yet, it was it was so weird. I'm telling you, it was so strange.
Well, that's a class thing. That's a class thing.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'll tell you, the Caribbean is not like that. All right, I can tell you now, the Caribbean is not like that. Where you may have people who have money and they may stick in their circles, you'll hardly ever. I don't think the likelihood of it is really, really low where someone would ever do that. I can't say I've ever seen it, to be honest with you. Whereas when I travel to Nigeria, I've seen the deference that is afforded to people who have money versus the persons who don't have money. The way that people are spoken to, the behavior. Yeah, I was in shock. When I wanted to get something to eat, I went to get my food, and this lady, she said to me, "I'll get your food." I said, "No, I'm fine. You've been working hard. I'll get." She said, "No. Let me serve you." And I was like, "Huh?" Ooh. I felt uncomfortable as I know I don't want you to serve me. I want to help myself and allow for you to rest. I've seen what you've been doing.
Yes.
But it's almost like offensive for them.
Yes. I had a situation with a houseboy. I hate the name houseboy, and we were going somewhere. I can't remember where it was. And I think he was carrying my bag, and he was trying to do something for himself, whether to tie his laces, or I can't remember what exactly it was. So I reached out to take the bag so that he, the shopping bag, so that he could do it. And he literally refused. No, you can't. On another hand, I kind of understand that there has to be some form of a, it's difficult because it's, in a way, it's like you have a boss and you have an employee, right? So you kind of have to draw the line somewhere, but I feel like it's just too much. So how is Barbados in that way? From the story, it seems like it's a little bit like that as well.
Whilst there may still be some glimpses of that, this I'd want you to go back into the 70s,
right?
For this story,
right?
So that's
it's
not
no longer
today.
Like that.
No, it's not. So you go back into the 70s. So if I say to you the 60s, the 70s, dare I say up to 1980, I think after the 80s it changed.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I'd say that. So it's not, I wouldn't say, well, things may still be that way in some instances. I know of some people who were still asked to sell their houses on the west coast of Barbados because people want to put up big, expansive, multi-million-dollar properties, and they're refusing to sell them. But whether these people are feeling that pressure or being made to feel in that way, it is not in my face. Let's just say that I'm not seeing evidence of it, although I know there is some gentrification. Some attempts at gentrification in some areas where where back in the day, people wouldn't want to live because it's close to the sea. Hence, when the hurricanes come in, your house will be the first to get washed away. Now, everyone wants to live in these places, and the taxes are so high that poor people cannot afford to live in these places anymore.
Right. So
Because
it is
if the
happening.
house to your left and to your right each are worth $1 million, guess what? Your land is going to appreciate in value exponentially.
Wow.
And that is the story of a lot of people's lives. Even when you look at the foods that we buy in the supermarkets, where once upon a time you had poor people's food was saltfish, so salted cod.
Mm-hmm.
And now you look at that thing in the supermarket, it's so expensive. That's not poor people's food anymore.
Wow. You know, since we are talking about gentrification, we can probably talk a little bit about Brixton, Peckham, and other neighborhoods in London, isn't it? Like Brixton, I remember Brixton from back in the day. It was so very different to what it is now. Oh, even, you know, again, I go to Ghana quite often. Accra is changing. The houses are like, when you look at the prices as well of the properties and everything else, it's just wild. Tell me, why do you think so many Black people are now relocating from the West to, I don't know, the Caribbean maybe as well? I'm not sure, but definitely to Africa. Like there are so many Americans relocating to Africa, and Ghana is one of the major places that people go to.
Okay, so what you've had is a whole resurgence of the whole Black culture and the whole identity thing. People are recognizing, you know, Africa is where they come from. I mean, I am generations removed, but my first visit to Nigeria was an eye-opener because it was not what was sold to me in the media. If you live well in Nigeria, you live very well.
Yeah.
You live very well.
So we are talking about the divide, right? There is just a
there is a divide. There is a divide. There's a poor,
yeah.
Yes. There's not a big middle class per se.
No.
Or
no.
the rich. So, but what you've got is persons recognizing, you know, Ghana, Nigeria, even Ethiopia, they're welcoming us with open arms. They're almost like the Canada of our era. So they're saying, right, we are actually starting to, you know, become something, be a part of this journey with us. And people from the Caribbean are taking the opportunity. They're moving to Nigeria. I had a meeting with someone a couple of weeks ago who said, I am moving to Nigeria. She left New York to move to St. Kitts, and she said, I'm moving to Nigeria. Nigeria is home. Have you ever visited Nigeria?
From the Caribbean. So she moved from New York to the Caribbean, and from the Caribbean to Nigeria. Nigeria, of all places, not even Ghana.
I asked her if she'd ever visited. She said no, but she's seen the movies, she's seen the people, she's got enough friends from Nigeria, it feels like home to her, and she's never even been there.
I'm wary of people who do that. I really don't think you should move to Africa unless you had at least been there and seen it, because there's a lot of romanticizing going on as well, and I'm quite concerned about that. And yeah, I have to say that.
But guess what?
Go see what you, because Africa is not an easy place. I mean, let's just say
it's not. It's
like
not.
West
But
Africa, Nigeria, Ghana.
Remember, Monica, you've got people leaving here to move to America, and they've never been to America. There's people who have gone to work on cruise ships, and they've never been on a boat. So sometimes you do need to take a leap of faith. You know, sometimes
I don't know if you should do that with
different.
Africa though, because the thing is, like when it comes to the UK and America, right? It's not the same, but it's kind of similar. You know, you're not gonna end up in America without, you know, the lights, without, you know, running water, or having to buy mineral water to soup, stuff like that. You know, you most likely you won't just. I don't know. It's I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what, though. What
I don't like, I'm just going to tell you.
Wait. You may find that you're in America living in a one-room flat, sharing a bathroom with 10 other people,
Yeah.
and only able to afford coupons for a $1.50 burger. So trust me when I say to you that quite often I've seen persons leave the Caribbean, go to the US, and they don't come back because either they can't afford to come back home,
Wow.
or they're too embarrassed because they don't want to be seen as failures.
Wow.
Or you've got the people who have run away from the Caribbean for whatever reason and they don't ever intend to come back here again. Or those people who just they've done well and they'll come back to visit or whatever. But I am always wary of those people who, you know, the fancy clothes and talk the talk and it's brilliant, when I know that life ain't that brilliant. And I know the true story behind some of them. So that's where I'm wary. So yeah, I take your point though. I take your point
Yeah.
about Nigeria and people telling you, well, you know, it's great here, just come. And then when you get there, it's a different story. People
Just
have done
go.
that when they come
All
to
I'm
Barbados as
saying,
well.
all I'm saying is go and test it. Don't just burn all your bridges where you are and then go and think it's paradise, because that's what it's being marketed as, and I don't like that. It's not paradise. I'm sorry. Now I had spent approximately 6 months in Ghana. Ghana is not paradise. Let me just say that. There are good things about Ghana. There are things about Ghana. It's not paradise. Go and check it out first, please. Especially
some people
if
can't
you've got
afford to check it out though. Some people can't afford to check it out. They can only afford
but you
to
cannot
do
afford
one
not
journey.
to though. But you can't afford not to, because once you know, there is no system in Ghana.
To say the same for England. We can say the same for England because trust me, when you go there and you get it wrong, you get it drastically wrong.
That's true too. That's true too. Like you have Africans thinking that they are coming to the promised land, right? Because it's England, it's Europe, it's great, you know, it's just going to be great. And then they come and they are homeless or they can't pay, you know. I get it. True. I guess that works both ways. I totally agree with you. Yeah.
But you know what? I'm really looking forward to working with you to develop this book, to make it something big. I've invested a lot of my literal sweat and tears into this book. There are bits of this book as I was writing it, I teared up because about memories. You know, it made me realize and recognize certain things. I spoke to family members and they gave me little tidbits to put in there that I wasn't even aware of.
Wow.
So I think that this is going to be huge, and I'm really grateful for everything you've done so far, Monica. Really appreciate
I appreciate you. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you reaching out to me to do this, because it's a wonderful project, and you know, it's a privilege to be working on it. Truly, it is. And I think I'm going to have to let you go because I know you've got things that you have to do. I feel like it was a really good conversation.
Yeah, totally. I would love to come back on your show again. You just let me know when, and I will be here.